Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Pittsburgh Pirates. We've simmed ahead a couple of weeks since the end of our last episode. As I mentioned at the end of the episode, we were really just going to be focused in the nitty-gritty details on trying to improve the personnel on the team, trying to start improving the roster a little bit, mainly through trades, or almost entirely through trades, because we just finished salary arbitration a couple days ago, and you can see that free agency filings were yesterday. So it's really been totally trade-driven and totally personnel-driven. We've actually fallen back in fan interest from the brutal 43 that we started with. One of our owner goals was to trade away Danny Perez, former Cy Young Award winner for the Pirates, and we did do that, but he was a very popular player as a relatively successful pitcher who had come up through the organization and actually won a Cy Young Award. We would have done the same thing anyways. We needed to get that contract off the books, but still took a hit to our fan interest by moving on from him that we haven't completely recovered from. And the other thing that I did notice, although he had signed a 2-year deal and we started with the Pirates on the first day of the offseason, you can see that our contract is actually up at the end of this upcoming 2038 season. So it really just ended up being a 1-year deal. So probably all the better that we at least have accomplished the goal of getting rid of Danny Perez, because I don't know if we're going to be able to play close to 500 ball. I think we have improved our team. It would be hard not to after winning 55 games this past season and not winning over 60 games for 3 straight years. But right now, and obviously there's a lot of time to go because we're just starting free agency, and all I've really done is trade off some spare parts that I didn't really want, try to bolster the minor league system a bit, and try to bring on some players who I think can help us more at the major league level. But if I was guessing, I'd say we're probably a team that can get into the high 60s to low 70s in wins right now, so maybe 10 to 15 games better than we were, which is big progress if I'm accurate on that, but still not really close to 500 ball. So we may not be very popular with Mr. Nutting at the end of this season, and given that it's really just a 1-year deal, I can't imagine he's going to can us after 1 year, but you never know. And as free agency begins, you can see we've got a little over $7 million to spend. We have improved our scouting and development budgets. You can see barely $4 million and barely $6 million last season. We've kind of put all the money from some of the trades we've made, particularly getting Perez off the books, into our scouting and development budgets. Our player payroll right now is just a sickly $31 million, close to $32 million. Best case scenario is we get it up to $40 million. There is a part of me that is considering not putting any money into international amateur free agents for next season only, hopefully. The reason being, we do have a very highly regarded farm system right now in terms of the talent that we have, and I think it's a lot more important to really get that development budget bumped. And we also right now have the #1 pick in next year's draft. Obviously that likely will change when the draft lottery happens, but we're still going to be picking near the top of the first round. So we're going to be bringing on some pretty solid talent through the draft, most likely anyways. Perhaps that extra $5 million could be better used for free agents or in bolstering the scouting and development budget a little more. So we'll see how the offseason plays out before we decide whether we want to go after an international amateur free agent this coming year or not. Have made a number of personnel changes, probably turned over about a third of our minor league coaches. We brought on a new scouting director, Jorgen Cavaniero, legendary with international scouting, which is the most important thing to me. We actually had a very accomplished scout in terms of evaluation on with the Pirates that we fired. He favored ability over tools. And there were no highly favored tools scouting directors that were available that had traits anywhere near what Kevin Yarrow did. So we brought him on board. We also brought on a new team trainer. Not that exciting, Tony Lynch. If you remember this name, you'll see that he's a guy that we hired for 1 year in 2030 in Kansas City when we were kind of searching for a long-term answer at team trainer. He is respectable, but certainly not great, but better than the coach we had him before. And we've also added new first base and third base coaches at the major league level. We've kept our hitting coach, kept our pitching coach, and to date we've kept manager Tim Levine, but I think we're going to fire him right now. Relationships with the team are only average. He's average at development, decent at mechanics. He's good at handling aging, but we have a relatively young team, so that's not a huge issue. You can see he came on midway through the 2036 season and then had all of last year with the team. But looking at what we have here, our bench coach, Tony Thomas, is not necessarily a great manager, but similar to Levine, he's decent with mechanics and good with aging, but he's actually excellent with development, and he's actually going to have better relationships with the Pirates. And his contract is also up at the end of this year. I think Thomas is someone who potentially we're going to maybe resign. Levine, I don't think there's any way that we want to resign him. So we are going to actually just go ahead and fire Tim Levine right now. We are going to promote Tony Thomas to our manager. See if that makes any big differences in terms of our lineups. Well, it looks like a few changes there, so we'll check into that. But and then we are going to promote Fidel Almario, who could be, a potential manager for us for the long term. He's in AA right now. We actually just hired him, but excellent with development, good with mechanics, outstanding with handling aging, and he's also got a personality that'll fit in reasonably well at the major league level. So we're going to make the big promotion to the unproven Fidel Almario and appoint him as our bench coach. And that'll leave us with a manager spot in the minors. We may promote someone that we've recently hired from the lower levels who's a little more competent and bolster the team that way. But I don't think that our previous manager was the long-term answer for us. Not sure if Tony Thomas is either. But between Thomas and Almario, hopefully we've got someone who will end up being our manager for the long term. And clearly, if we don't want Thomas to be that guy, his contract's going to expire at the end of this year, and we can always go on the open market and figure that out. And now to catch you up on the trade action, how we've tried to kind of start reshaping this roster since our last episode. You're going to see a similar theme to the end of the previous episode where we're going for kind of a bunch of spare parts from the Royals and bringing on some players that we're reasonably familiar with, which actually does help because since our scout is brand new, we have very low accuracy on just about everyone when we put a trade offer out there. So when it looks somewhat close between the people we can potentially get back, I have tended to go with somebody that I know from our long run in Kansas City. So we traded Alex Rivera, first baseman. Don't love the low work ethic. Was the best batter on our team last year, hit close to 300, 16 homers, 70 ribbies, a 1.7 WAR, which was by far the best on the team. We traded him to the Royals for the left-handed pitcher Omar Ganoa. You may remember that a season ago, if you were watching our Kansas City playthrough, we traded for him from the Tampa Bay Rays. Like the personality, he's a fan favorite. Hopefully he can be a little more effective out of the bullpen with the Pirates than he was with the Royals last year. Traded away a young right-handed pitcher, Alex Barrios, who just don't like the fact that he doesn't have very good stuff, as well as shortstop Danny Berenguer, decent defensively, but just not enough of a bat that we wanted to keep him around. And we got third baseman Rich Salone. Totally looks like a replacement level type player, but he's got a good work ethic. We're trying to really put some better personalities, not just at the major league level, but throughout the organization. So with a lot of these trades we've been making, we've just been getting replacement level minor leaguers back who have good work ethic, good intelligence, good adaptability, good leadership, captain and spark plug type personalities that are going to get along well with the rest of their teammates, be a good influence on the development of those around them, and hopefully in some cases ultimately produce at the major league level. But Salone gave us another bat. Another trade with the Royals. We traded away our young catcher, Kenneth Belk. Just didn't like the personality and didn't really like the fact that he's not really much of a hitter. You can see he hit 186 in his first stint in Pittsburgh and then 161 in his second stint in Pittsburgh. We traded him to the Royals basically primarily for backup catcher Adam Fuchs. Great personality, solid defensively, and now it's kind of interesting. Our two backup catchers over the last 6 or 7 years with the Royals, Adam Fuchs and Leo Aguiar, are now the two catchers that are going to be on the roster here in Pittsburgh. Also got minor league Lee Dixon, decent personality with the high loyalty. Don't know if he ever really becomes a major leaguer. Hit 270 in Double-A last season. Traded Sam Simpson, 34-year-old right-handed pitcher. Don't love the low work ethic. Got Olivio Lantara. Good personality, but again, probably not really a major league pitcher. Does have one option year left, though, so he'll kind of be a 4A guy for us most likely at Pittsburgh. If we have some injuries in the pitching rotation, he'll come up and join us. And then we did do a bigger trade with the Royals. This was one that we had talked about and put out there at the end of our last episode. The main thing is that we brought on shortstop Tony Fonseca. Excellent defensive shortstop, although his range has regressed a little bit over the last couple of seasons, but has been a pretty solid player over the course of his career. You can see he's put up a 12.5 WAR over parts of 6 seasons, basically been the Royals starter for the last 5 years. He's an Iron Man, so he's out there every day. He's going to be a below average major league hitter. But if you remember the last episode, I did feel like the one thing that I felt decent about on the Pirates was the starting pitching. Certainly they had brutal records last year and in some cases bad ERAs. And I thought that bringing on an excellent defensive shortstop to really stabilize that position for the next few years could be a significant step in getting better results out of that pitching staff. So really wanted to upgrade at shortstop. We did get the Royals to retain 45% of his contract, which absolutely helps. Had to trade away a lot of players to get him. Brandon Barrera, not a great personality, kind of a replacement level major league arm. Tony Sandoval, who was the Pirates shortstop last year. You can see he was also very good defensively, also good in the clubhouse with a good work ethic, but he's fragile as opposed to the Iron Man that Fonseca is, and he's just a brutal offensive player. You look at what Sandoval has done over his career, 54 OPS plus, 51 WRC plus, and a negative WAR over the course of his career despite that excellent defense. So Fonseca is definitely a big upgrade to him with his 83 OPS plus, 79 WRC plus, a lot better offensively. And although he doesn't quite have the range, I think overall he's a better defensive player, given that he's got that brilliant error arm and turn double play ratings. So would have loved to have kept Sandoval around as a super utility infielder with that glove. Would have loved to train him up in a couple other positions, but had to put him in the deal to get it done. Jorge Mejia, minor league first baseman, replacement level type player. Leo Estremera, just minor league filler. And then Sebastian Rodriguez, who did have a nice personality, didn't love giving him up, but certainly looks like best case scenario, he's a fifth outfielder at the major league level. So I do feel bad in one way in that I kind of wanted to see how these Royals, the Royals that I had built, were going to continue performing over the next several seasons, and still will be able to do that, obviously, and still will be able to see whether Bobby Witt Jr. ends up in the Hall of Fame, in 4 years from now or further down the line. But I do feel like I've weakened that Kansas City roster by bringing on Fonseca, bringing on a few pitchers, bringing on both of the backup catchers, and then most notably, and we talked about this in our last episode, we made the big trade to bring on Victor Avelar, who it's kind of interesting, and you can see we signed him to $8.25 million in arbitration. He's going to be by far the highest paid player on the Pirates this year. But when I was managing Kansas City, he was kind of becoming a fourth or fifth outfielder for us and was going to be replaced this year. And I didn't want to be spending $8 million plus on a fifth outfielder, even with the fact that Kansas City's budget is a lot bigger than the Pirates is right now. But looking at the Pirates roster, he joins us and he is immediately our cleanup hitter, best hitter on the team. And he does also happen to be a fan favorite with good work ethic and low greed. But he was a spare part for Kansas City, and he's going to be a absolute critical piece to what we're trying to do, at least this next year in Pittsburgh. Can see the arbitration estimate for next season is about $11 million, so we may actually have to move on from him after this season. But at least he gives us a proven power bat at the major league level. Can see he was Rookie of the Year in 2034, was actually an All-Star last season, even though we've been trying to kind of move on. We were trying to kind of move on from him in Kansas City. And then we've also brought on the Royals, many of whom have, 3 or 4 world titles, the players that we've brought on at this point. I don't know that having that winning experience really does anything in OOTP, but it can't hurt. Again, I don't know exactly how the game algorithm work, whether, having people on your team who have been on championship teams before helps in the clubhouse, helps on the margins in a tight game, does anything positive. Haven't heard that it does, but you would think that, with the badges that people have won over the course of their careers, maybe there's something there. So glad to have some of these more accomplished players on board here in Pittsburgh. Moving on to the moves that we made in the month of November. And there's a few other trades to discuss here in November. Jesus Dorado, another good field, but just absolutely no-hit player at the major league level. Traded him to the Royals. Basically just got a minor league second baseman with a little bit better personality, like the work ethic, not as good defensively. Potentially a respectable major league bat, although you can see he hit just .235 for the Royals in Omaha last year. So really a replacement level type player, but just want players on the majors that can actually hit a little bit, who don't make stupid mistakes. So wanted to move on from Dorado. You can see Rich Alvarado, who we picked up in that trade for Avelar, made $3.75 million in arbitration. So we actually lost our arbitration hearing with him, and he had been a backup player in Kansas City for the last few years. You can see just 86 at-bats last year. Love the personality, like the fact that we got a history with him, but he was really only going to be starting for us against left-handers as a first baseman, and just didn't think that we could justify spending almost $4 million a year on that. So we ended up trading him and a minor leaguer to get a couple of other minor leaguers from Philadelphia, and you'll see we traded, pitcher Xavier White, not the best personality in the world, another not thinking player. Got minor league reliever Vinny Ortiz, probably never going to be anything at the major league level, but a good personality to have in the minors. Manny Enriquez, another good personality who's never really going to likely be a major leaguer. And then we did get first baseman Jose Bernal, who looks like a replacement level-ish type batter. Not as good defensively as Alvarado was, but still has that good work ethic, even though not the best leader in the world, and he's making the major league minimum this year. So we felt, and we actually got the Phillies to keep some of that major league minimum. So we felt like that trade made sense just in terms of opening up some money. Another trade we made to open up some money, traded away Christopher Diaz, who got almost $1.8 million in arbitration. Like the personality, but he's a 33-year-old veteran. He was going to be a fourth or fifth outfielder for us. Just don't feel like we could keep him on. So we got a minor league catcher. We traded away that minor league catcher, and we also traded away two minor league catchers with not great personalities along with him. And we got first baseman Jose Perez, who they were looking to get rid of. Kind of like him, better as a backup infielder, corner outfielder for us, because he's younger, and again, he's making less money. Don't think he's a big-time player, but he's at least younger than Diaz was. So that should get you up to date on the high-level overview of the transactions that we've made. As I said, we brought on a lot of Royals, so hopefully some of those players will bring their winning tradition to this Pirates team. And as I said earlier, I think we're probably high 60s in wins. If I had to guess right now, I'd say we're 67, 68 win team. So if we can kind of improve by 10 to 15 wins, we've now got the whole offseason ahead of us to try to make that number better. But really the first thing we want to do is try to generate some fan interest. We don't have a ton of money to spend at this point, unfortunately. So we're not going to make any wholesale changes to the roster. And honestly, when we're looking for players, I think right now we'd like to add a left-handed arm to the bullpen. And this is kind of a cynical way for me to be looking at players, but we're really just going to look for players that we can add who have got some popularity and aren't a horrible major league player and also aren't making a ton of money. We've got to just start getting more fans in the seats at these Pittsburgh games, and ultimately, hopefully, working on improving our budget and player payroll, getting out of 30th in both of those in the major leagues. Clearly, putting more money into scouting and development should help us for 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now, have better players who can be fully developed and help us at the major league level. So that is the long-term investment into improving, hopefully over time, our budget and player payroll. But the short-term investment is going to be to take some popular players who are kind of replacement level like type players, not looking for tons of money, and just try to get a couple of them onto the roster over the next few weeks to give ourselves a little bump in fan interest. Again, we don't have huge aspirations for this season. If we can get to 70 wins, I think that would be a victory, but want to definitely start generating more revenue per game than the previous regime was generating with these Pirates. And the pickings of popular players who are free agents are relatively slim, and not surprisingly, some who are making huge money like Yofri Solano. The most realistic target for us, honestly, would probably be right fielder Chase Nixon, who would be a fifth outfielder for us next year. He's wrecked physically. Good personality, spark plug personality, good at work ethic, adaptability, leadership, and greed. Does have low loyalty and intelligence, but net still a positive player to have in the system. He's only looking for $1.9 million. It would purely be for the popularity bump from him. I guess we could also go for Dylan Carlson, who is not as positive a personality, also wrecked physically. first baseman. There's just not a lot out there. Drew Romo would be nice, even at this point in his career, as a defensive catcher. The captain personality with the high leadership and work ethic, but he's wrecked physically, looking for over $5 million a year, given that we brought on 2 major league quality catchers that we like in Aguiar and Fuchs. I just don't think that's the right way to go. And then Yonatoshi Tagaki, just a bad personality, also wrecked physically, looking for close to $4 million. Just don't think that there is a position player who we should bring on. Turning to pitchers, there's a lot more options of popular players, as you can see. So hopefully we can find some organizational depth with a decent personality that's not looking for a ton of money, who can slot in as the 6th or 7th man out of our bullpen. If it happens to be a left-handed pitcher, even better. And looking at the popular players who are free agents, our old buddy Ben Borgman, still recovering from that torn UCL, basically going to be out a good chunk of next season. Wrecked physically, only looking for $2 million. Probably not the type of guy that we're looking to add. There are a couple pitchers who we're going to bring on. Elias Chera, 31-year-old. He's durable. He's got a great personality, and he's extremely popular. Don't love the below-average movement and below-average control. Over the course of his major league career, though, he has been an above-average right-handed arm out of the bullpen, only looking for $1.6 million. So we're going to try to bring him on as a right-handed pitcher. And then as a lefty, we're going to bring on, or try to bring on, Colin Schmid, another good personality, fan favorite. He's going to be 41 years old next season, and he's looking for $2.8 million. But he's very popular. I mentioned I wanted to bring on a lefty. That's what's really pushing me towards Schmid. But as I'm thinking about it, even with the boost potentially to fan interest, bringing on a very popular player, I just don't think at close to $3 million there's a lot of bang for the buck to do that, even with the good personality and the popularity. So we're going to go after Elias Chera first, or Chira. We're going to call him Chira. Elias Chira. Only looking for a 1-year deal. We'll see if we can get him for less than he's looking for. Ooh, he wants to be promised a role as a closer. I don't know that we want to do that. 1.3 million. Can he really be our closer? Oof. I don't want to start off this relationship lying to the guy. We don't have a great situation in our bullpen right now, obviously. Right now we've got Ernesto Moreno as our closer. Saved 28 games last year for the Pirates, 4.52 ERA. He certainly doesn't look all that impressive either. He's younger. He's only 24 years old. He also expects to be the closer. So I think we're probably going to have to, I want to get Chira signed. 1.3 million. How about 1.3 million without being the closer? He really wants to be our closer. 1.4 million, no closer. Ooh, he's already angry with us, though. We've probably already blown this. Yep, so Chira really wanted to be a closer, so off to a rousing start in terms of our ability to win friends and influence people in free agency. So it looks like our fallback might be Marcus Smith. Captain personality, high leadership, so that's positive. Only looking for, again, about 1.6 million. He wants to be a starter, and we want to use him as a reliever. So going to see if we can sign him, but we're not going to guarantee him a starter role. Most importantly, he's also an extremely popular player, which is really, sadly, all we're looking for right now. 1.6 million, and he claims he wants to be a closer too. Oh, these prima donnas, they want these guaranteed rolls. We'll try to get the discussion off to a better tone with him, offering him 1.4 million, but no guaranteed roll. He wants 1.46 and guaranteed to be the closer. We'll give you $1.5 million. No guarantees about being a closer, though. No, he wants to be a closer. So we're gonna let the market evolve for these players. There will be somebody available with popularity in a month, 2 months from now that we can potentially bring on board. Again, if the player isn't quite as good as those two guys, that's fine. Neither of them were world beaters as far as I'm concerned. And again, this is going to be the 6th, 7th arm out of our bullpen. We're really just trying to generate a little fan interest as we start to try selling season tickets and tickets throughout all of next year. And before we kick off free agency, we'll also just check in on award season. One final check-in on what our Kansas City Royals, our previous employer, did. Not surprisingly, Manny Vela, MVP in the American League. Alex Vasquez actually did get 12 first-place votes, though. Manny Vela, excellent hitter, incredible glove, great personality, shortstop who is now a 2-time MVP award winner, perennial Gold Glove winner, perennial All-Star, just won his 2nd Silver Slugger, and he won a world championship with the Red Sox this past season. So that 11.9 WAR and great defense proved to be too much for Alex Vasquez to overcome, despite a brilliant season for the Royals. Jorge Lebron, youngster, also got some first place votes, but some MVP votes, as did Jonathan Ojeda. Looking at the Cy Young Award in the American League, Eddie Chavera, 4th in the voting, had a 14-5 record, 3.25 ERA, and our old buddy Caleb Lagerwell, 13-6, 3.22 ERA. And it looks like the Royals exercised his $21 million option. Good for you, Kansas City. Keeping Caleb Lagerwell on board, and then Gabe Pryor, the left-handed arm out of the bullpen, also got a vote for Cy Young Award. For the first time in his career, Bobby Crosby was not named Manager of the Year. Rookie of the Year in the American League, no Royals among the winners. Silver Sluggers in the American League, not surprisingly, Alex Vasquez in right field. Best reliever in the American League, Gabe Pryor, 5-5 with 4 saves, 2.19 ERA. Got some votes there. And last but not least, Gold Glove Awards. Our old buddy Angelo Velasquez wins his 2nd Gold Glove, back-to-back years in center field for the Royals. So that is it for award season, and that will allow us to really completely pivot to focusing on these Pittsburgh Pirates going forward, although we'll clearly be checking in on what the Royals do from time to time. Maybe we'll make some more trades with them over the coming years, and we'll certainly want to check in down the line as to Bobby Witt Jr. and whether or not he ends up in the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. And I think we're going to sim ahead pretty rapidly through free agency. Hopefully one of those pitchers that we made an offer to will ask to re-engage with us down the line if they're not signed and the market doesn't evolve the way they hope. But again, we are just looking for someone who's relatively popular for these final potential spots on our roster. So if we have to wait until February or March to do it, that's fine. And there's also potential that as we get closer to the Rule 5 draft, I would think that we're going to be pretty active there, and we may be able to find not just some popular players, but also some players who can hopefully really make a difference on our roster. You know, we're coming off of a horrible season, as I've talked about. We don't have a great roster. You would think that in the Rule 5 draft, we can definitely find some people who can help us. And we've only got 26 players on the secondary roster right now after making all of those trades and kind of trying to clear out as much room to clear out as much room for bringing on contracts and salary as possible. So we've definitely got room to bring on some players, but looking at the overall and potential ratings of this Pittsburgh Pirates roster, it's a lot different than what a 26-man roster would have been like for the Kansas City Royals over the past several seasons. And we've just kept Simmon forward, have not had any further interaction with those relievers, but let's see the results from the draft lottery. As we've talked about, I'm sure we're going to fall out of the first position. No! All right. That's good. I was very prepared for the Pirates to not have the first pick in the draft. So pleased that, I have no idea what the draft class is going to look like for next season, but good to know that I think this is the first time that I've ever played OOTP that I've had the first pick in the entire draft. So I'm pretty excited to see what we can do with that. Taking a look at the front office. Looks like that's still going to fit in with our recommended slot amount, so don't have to tweak anything there yet. But the Pirates will be picking first next July. That's going to be fun. And we are ready for the Rule 5 draft. And there's definitely a possibility that we will have a player in our starting lineup or a key pitcher who comes out of this Rule 5 draft. Clearly, if there's popular players available also, that could help us too. Haven't really done anything since free agency started over a month ago at this point, so the first real significant activity for the Pirates in this offseason. Hopefully going to be acquiring a couple interesting players in this Rule 5 draft. Scouting director recommends that we go with Roger Smallwood, 24-year-old starting pitcher. Not a great personality, but certainly a replacement level, maybe a little bit above at the major league level. Has never played in the majors yet. Spent last year in AAA, 6-9 record, 4.90 ERA. Unknown in terms of his popularity. Interesting guy, certainly would have some value to the Pirates in our rotation potentially, or coming out of the bullpen. Don't love the personality. David Villalobos, just in terms of the potential that our scouting director sees, looks interesting. Doesn't help with the popularity, but certainly a hard-throwing arm out of the bullpen. But he's never been above A-ball, was 8-10 last year with a 3.45 ERA as a starter. If we moved him into a reliever role, he could potentially be a major leaguer next year, but he's a fly ball pitcher, throws in the low 90s, doesn't have a ton of movement. And again, our scouting rankings are generally all very low right now because we've got a new scout who's just kind of working through everyone around the world. But OSA doesn't think he has really good movement either. So we'll kind of pick through some things. Obviously, we're only looking at the pitchers right here. If we look at all batters, in terms of potential, John Herrera. Whew. Our scout thinks he's got tons of potential, but he's got a nice personality. He was a minor league free agent signing in the Texas system last year. Doesn't look like he's ever actually played a game. That would be a pretty bold move to get him onto the major league roster from the Dominican Rookie League, especially based on, I guess we have average accuracy on him. But the OOTP scouts don't think he's nearly as interesting. But we'll spend a little time looking at the rest of the guys who are out here and let you know what we come up with. And we're going to go in a different direction. We're going to pick Victor Gomez from the Royals system. Durable player, was the Royals international free agent signing back in 2030. He's never made it above high A ball, but he did hit .301 with 23 homers, 39 doubles last year in high A. Profiles as a plus bat He's not going to walk much, and he's going to strike out a lot. But he does potentially make good contact and have good power. And it's possible that as a first baseman, although really is a DH when you look at his brutal offensive ratings, it's possible that he could make this Pittsburgh team. This Pittsburgh team is not very good. That bat is potentially very different than anything we have in Pittsburgh. Granted, it's based on very low scouting accuracy, but the OSA has him in the same general neighborhood for what it's worth. If you remember my Royal Sim, I don't think he's a Javi Medina type of Rule 5 acquisition. Far from it, quite honestly. But I think he's definitely an interesting enough bat. And since we're not going to be fighting to compete for the playoffs next year, we're going to be fighting to whether we win 65 games or 70 games, there's definitely potential for somebody like this on the 26-man roster. So we are going to go ahead and draft Victor Gomez and move on to the second round. And scouting director recommends Tony Cook, second baseman. I actually like the personality, like the defensive versatility. He's a replacement level-ish major league hitter, but he's probably better than some of what we have in the infield right now, particularly as a utility infielder. He's durable. Hit just a $199 when he got promoted by the Boston organization to AAA last year. So he doesn't look like he's ready for the majors. OSA thinks he's pretty solid also. There's a chance that this guy could end up on our 26-man roster also. So I'm going to go ahead with what Kevin Yarrow says, and we are going to go ahead and draft Tony Cook in the second round. Moving on to the third round, back to Villalobos. Might be time to bring him on board. 23-year-old, again, don't love the low movement and the not-so-great control. But we also don't have very accurate scouting on him at this point. It's hard to imagine he's going to make the leap from AA to the majors. But we're just looking at lottery tickets right now. So we're going to take Villalobos. Here in the fourth round, Marvin Bigelow, second baseman from Canada. Solid glove. Don't think he's going to hit all that much. He's fragile. Given that we've already taken a second base shortstop, Tony Cook, I don't think we really need him. I don't think we're going to have that many spots available. We're going to do a little more searching through players. I don't think Bigelow's the way to go, but there's possibility that we may still pick a fourth player here in the fourth round of the Rule 5. And we're going to go back to our friends in Kansas City in the fourth round. Willie Arenales, who was a fourth-round pick by the Royals back in 2033. Durable lefty, did move up to AAA last year. 2.84 ERA in AA. Started the season in high A, where he put up a 3.12 ERA and then a 3.65 ERA at AAA Omaha at the end of the season. Don't know that he's quite major league ready at this point, but again, that's not necessarily a huge need with these Pirates. And he is a left-handed arm, which we've been looking for. We're going to throw him in the mix also. So we remain very active in this Rule 5 draft. Scouting director still recommending Marvin Bigelow. Don't know if that's really the answer. And here in the fifth round, I'm just going to roll the lottery. I guess I'm not rolling a lottery ticket. We're rolling the dice, or we're playing the lottery on John Herrera, that catcher from the Rangers system who's never actually played minor league ball. Does seem to have a great personality. And theoretically, he could be a nice bat for a catcher. Now, not great defensively as a catcher. I don't think there's any scenario where we end up keeping him over Aguilar and Fuchs. But if we have an injury, Could we try to keep him on the major league team next year and see exactly what he is? Sure. And we're also going to have the ability to scout him up over the next few months and know a little bit more about him. So our scout is telling us that this guy's got great potential. I think it's just that he doesn't know him that well. But we're going to grab Herrera in the 5th round as a lottery ticket, and that's going to be it for the Rule 5 draft for the Pirates this year. But don't think I've ever taken 5 players in a Rule 5 draft before. So the first baseman, Victor Gomez, who I think will definitely be on the major league team. Tony Cook, who may become a utility infielder for us. And then the pitchers, Villalobos and Arenales, who should be fighting for roster spots. And then we'll see what happens with the catcher, John Herrera. But we need an influx of talent here in Pittsburgh, so we're going to do everything we can to try to bring some talent on board. And at least we got 31 players on our 40-man roster now, and hopefully we'll be increasing that number in the coming months. And taking a look at the free agent market here at the beginning of January, Elias Chira is still out there. Would certainly not mind re-engaging with him if he's not insistent on being a closer for us, because I don't want to start out our relationship with a lie. In the meantime, though, Raul Pena, looking for about $1.9 million. He's an extremely popular player. His expectation is just a bullpen role. Not a big-time pitcher at this point in his career, and he's been kind of a league average pitcher over the course of his major league career. But again, we're just looking for someone extremely popular to make the fans a little more interested in watching this mediocre Pittsburgh product. So he says he's got a offer from the Brewers. Oh, he says he wants to be back in the starting rotation. He's just not a starter, not even for these Pirates. We'll see if money talks. We'll offer him $1.5 million, but we're not going to guarantee him a role. Nope, he's insistent on the starting rotation. So we're going to continue to bide our time with these pitchers. There's still enough players out there who have some degree of popularity that we can potentially bring them on board. So no need to panic yet. And we did just lose to free agency Pablo Aldonis, a 35-year-old reliever that we really had no desire to keep at decent money. You can see he's making a little over $2 million with the Mets. But that'll hit our fan interest again a little bit, so we're down to a 41 there. So hopefully we can start signing some players who people in Pittsburgh are going to be interested in going out to watch. You can see, I guess we lowered our ticket prices pretty significantly this year. We are on pace to sell more season tickets. Our revenue per game actually going to be a little lower with the significant drop in prices. Our hope is that if we can boost fan interest a little bit and then start putting a better product on the field, maybe there's a little upside to our attendance projections, and we'll start seeing that in the revenue numbers over the course of the season as well. And as the preseason begins, Robert Nutting wanted to make sure he reminded us that we have the lowest budget in all of baseball. No surprise there. And you may have also noticed that our friend Elias Chira signed with Toronto, so he is off the opportunity set for us. Looks like he signed for a little less than $1.5 million, and he's only expecting to be in the bullpen with them. So doesn't seem like there's a lot of people coming into the Pirates system and not being promised roles as a closer or a starting pitcher, but hopefully we'll be able to find some help over the next few weeks. All right, here on the start at the start of February 1st. Let's see, we still got some money to potentially spend. Question whether we want to bump up the scouting or development budgets as we get closer to spring training. Would be helpful if we kind of knew who we were going to bring on board and what our fan interest looked like. Right now, we've still got $5 million in the budget for international amateur free agents. I'm getting a little more inclined to maybe keep that there and still take a shot on somebody this season. Definitely a big investment for a team like the Pirates, and you can see our payroll of $31 million is just an absolute embarrassment. You know, you look at this, we've got Avear, Fonseca, Aguiar, who we brought on from the Royals organization. Rivas and Corsi are the only ones making over $1 million this year, and then everyone else is on a minimum contract. And in some cases, we've left minimum contracts with portions of those with another organization. So it is just it is a very different simulation right now for me to be playing with this crew as opposed to what I was used to with the Royals over the last last few months of real life playing through with that simulation. But it's fun. It's definitely invigorating to be doing something a little different, thinking about things a little differently than just trying to win it all, to really be focusing on a rebuild and trying to do it thoughtfully. And we are going to make an offer to Toshikazu Kikuchi, pitcher from Japan, but he's pitched in the majors for several years now. Been a very average left-handed arm, looking for $1.6 million, but he's extremely popular. And he doesn't require a specific role in the bullpen. He wants a bonus if he pitches 180 innings. Absolutely, dude. Let's see if we can sign him for $1.3 million. We'll even up the bonus to $200,000 for 180 innings because he's going to be a bullpen player for us. Looking for a little more money than we had offered. All right, $1.4 million. And the Pirates have finally made a free agent offer to somebody. And I know that some of you are going to be freaking out when I'm saying this, but I'm actually thinking about maybe bringing on Ben Borgman, who is wrecked physically, and he's going to be out for another 5 months, so likely through the All-Star break and into August with a torn UCL. And he was really ineffective over the last couple years of his really nice career with the Royals. But he happens to be extremely popular in Pittsburgh and very popular nationally. So if Borgman is still on the market in a few weeks, it's possible we're going to sign him just to generate a little bit of fan interest. But in the meantime, we'll see what happens with Kikuchi. And it is definitely different to be playing with the Pirates because Kikuchi never even acknowledged that we made an offer to him. Never said whether he liked it, never said whether he didn't like it. And he signed with the Astros for less money than what we had offered him. So, yeah, we offered him $1.4 million and a $150,000 bonus if he pitched those 180 innings, and he never even responded. Nobody wants to play with these Pittsburgh Pirates if they have any other possible option. I'm getting close to making an offer to Borgman, but he is out for 5 months, and he is not a very good pitcher at this point. It would just be for the popularity. Instead, I'm going to go with Jared Kelly right now, though. Decent personality, captain personality. He's fragile. He's looking for $2.2 million. He's not really a good pitcher at this point, but he is very popular, and we got to do something. And he's not interested in joining the Pirates. Oh, Pirates, Pirates, Pirates. This is a guy who isn't even good enough to pitch on our team. And he doesn't want to talk to us. And he's unemployed a couple days before spring training starts. Well, before we go after Ben Borgman, we got to try something else. And Drew Romo's demands have come down to $3 million. And he still is a very good defensive catcher with a great personality. And do Aguiar and Fuchs, does one of them have options left? I want to say that Fuchs might. I don't think Aguiar does. Yeah, Aguiar's out of option years. Adam Fuchs does have an option year left if we wanted to send him down. I don't really want to send him down. We could obviously look to trade somebody coming out of spring training, and we could obviously we'll likely be moving on from Herrera. You know, we're up to high scouting accuracy on him now. And he doesn't look like a horrible prospect, but it's hard to imagine going from whatever he has been doing over the course of his baseball career, given that he's a 23-year-old who doesn't really have any track record. Not really sure what he's been doing, but that says it all about Pittsburgh, that a guy who doesn't apparently play baseball at a professional level is right now on our 40-man roster. But do we bring on Drew Romo for a year simply because he's so popular? And does he even want to come to Pittsburgh? Looking for $3 million a year. What if we offer you $2.5 million? And we've got to guarantee him the starting lineup. That's fine. He's willing to think about it. Ugh. This is interesting. And you may be wondering, have I been looking to trade for extremely popular players through this whole time frame? And the answer is yes, but the price is frighteningly prohibitive. We look at Angel Zerpa here from the Orioles, who was a minor league free agent signing this past season. Probably not even going to make the Royals roster. And they basically want one of the big players in our system. I mean, I guess this is actually Zerpa is, I'm glad I found him because the demands for him are not as bad as they have been for some people. You know, Jorge Melendez is a fan favorite. We don't want to give him up. And then Mike Piedra. He's a minor league prospect, never been above rookie ball, 20 years old. I guess we ship him to bring on Zerpa because he's extremely popular. I mean, Zerpa's a 38-year-old left-handed pitcher who's not really more effective against lefties than he is against righties. But we've got to do something to help fan interest. Hopefully we don't have to be so desperate that it's Zerpa. But, you know, just kind of showing you what I had been looking at this time through with some others. I wasn't looking for exceptional players, you know. Andrew Dutkanich IV, 34-year-old, wrecked physically. And there's one player in our entire system who they would take for him. Tony Santana, who is a very good young starting pitcher prospect for us. So the extremely popular players are going to be extremely costly for us. 25-year-old Omar Lopez. Not that good a pitcher. But at least he's young. At least he's a good personality. that they want even more for him. You know, I just don't think it makes sense. But I guess it does in the sense that we've got to bring on some players who are major league quality players. Dave Gutierrez here, 15th round draft pick. All he does is hit home runs, potentially. OSA doesn't even think he's as good as hitting home runs as our scout does. Do we trade him for Lopez just to bring on an extremely popular player who's relatively young, good personality? I think we do. Gutierrez doesn't profile as the type of player I love, who's just pure home runs but not really good at making contact, strikes out a decent amount, doesn't have the greatest eye. And he's already 20 years old, and he's coming off a year which he hit 209 in rookie ball. So the question is whether he's going to really develop to have that great home run power or not. I got to do something to start pumping up the popularity of this team, though. So we're going to see if we can get something else besides Gutierrez, even if it's just a minor league fill-in from the Tigers. All right, and we do have a deal with the Tigers. We're going to send them Gutierrez, as well as Jason Robinson, who's a minor league pitcher with no control, who's never going to be a major leaguer. We're going to pick up Lopez simply because he's extremely popular. I mean, he's a 25-year-old who's already fragile, and he's a marginal major league arm. But he does have that extreme popularity. And he's also good in the clubhouse, so there's some value there with Lopez. And then we can also get Ivan Guzman, never going to be a major leaguer, but a good personality for our minor league system. And Ruben Molina, same thing, never going to be a major leaguer, but another good personality to have in our minor league system. So although assistant GM Dan Reynolds suggests we reject it, we are going to go ahead and complete that trade. The fans pleased that we brought on Omar Lopez. And that did give us a 2-point bump in fan interest. So after everything we've done this offseason, we are back to where the Pirates were when it started. So I think we have a better team, but we don't have a team that the fans are any more interested in watching at this point. But we still can change that. We've still got money to spend. We're still going to see what happens to that offer to Drew Romo. And there's potentially other trades that we can make as we get into spring training. And Drew Romo is interested in our $2.5 million offer, so there's another potential avenue for us to get a bump in fan interest here. You can see spring training beginning today. And in our next episode, we're going to dig deep into spring training for these Pittsburgh Pirates, see if we can bump up fan interest again a little more significantly before the regular season starts. We're locked in with our scouting and development budgets for the year. We're locked in with our draft budget. We are going to focus on international amateur free agents this year. So we've still got a little money to take on some contracts. And we will see how our first spring training as general manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates goes in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.